5 years ago, Chang Jun Lee walked into Nicole Adams' birthday dinner, carrying a gift from the only man they both considered family. 5 years later, he was standing in their kitchen, trying to convince their 4-year-old son that breakfast did not include chocolate cake. Just one piece. No? Half? Absolutely not. Their son looked toward Nicole. Mommy? Nicole was standing at the kitchen counter, trying very hard not to laugh.
Your father
Don't
is in
look
charge
at me.
of breakfast.
Your father is in charge of breakfast. The little boy turned back to Chang Jun. Mommy said yes. Chang Jun slowly looked at Nicole. You didn't.
I absolutely
did not. The boy smiled. Chang Jun sighed. He's getting better at this. Nicole walked over, kissed her husband's cheek, and picked up their son. He's your son.
He's your
Chang
son.
Jun smiled. Unfortunately, that's true. Their son immediately protested. I'm Mommy's son.
See?
Nicole laughed. See? For a few seconds, the billionaire chairman of Lee Group wasn't thinking about board meetings, billion-dollar decisions, or the hundreds of employees waiting for him. He was simply a husband standing in his kitchen, watching his wife laugh with their son. 5 years had changed everything. Nicole had once been a young woman sitting alone at a birthday dinner, wondering why the person she loved most had broken his promise to come. Now, she woke up beside the man she had never expected to meet. She had a beautiful home, a husband who still found ways to make her laugh, a little boy who had somehow inherited both her stubbornness and his father's confidence. And Adams Studio, the tiny design firm she once built with nothing but determination, had become one of Seoul's most respected design companies. But despite everything that had changed, one thing hadn't. Professor Kang was still at the center of their family. Every Sunday, he complained that Nicole didn't visit enough. Every Sunday, he brought their son something he absolutely didn't need. And every Sunday, Chang Jun reminded him, "You're the reason he's spoiled." Professor Kang would simply smile. That's what grandparents are for. Nicole loved those Sundays, because when she looked around the table, she no longer saw the lonely life she once feared. She saw home. And she thought that perhaps, after everything life had put her through, she had finally reached the part of her story where she could simply be happy. Then, one Monday morning, Nicole received a phone call that made her stop in the middle of her office. She had been chosen for the biggest project of her career, the restoration of one of Seoul's most historic landmarks. Her team erupted in celebration. Nicole smiled, almost overwhelmed. She had spent years working toward a moment like this. But there was something she didn't know. Across the city, another designer was reading the same announcement. And she wasn't celebrating. She was staring at Nicole's name on the screen. Han Seo-rin had spent 20 years waiting for an opportunity like this. And now, she believed Nicole Adams had taken it from her. She picked up her phone. Arrange a meeting. A pause. Then she added quietly, "I want to meet Nicole Adams." And just like that, the happiest chapter of Nicole's life was about to become the most challenging one yet. The Monday morning after Nicole received the call, Adams Studio felt completely different. The usually calm office had turned into controlled chaos. Designers crowded around computer screens. Assistants hurried between desks, carrying drawings and coffee. Someone had already ordered champagne, even though the official contract hadn't been signed yet. Nicole stood in the middle of it all, watching her team celebrate. 5 years earlier, Adams Studio had been little more than a modest 3-story building with a handful of employees and more ambition than money. Now, their name was attached to one of the most important restoration projects in Seoul. The Seoul Grand Conservatory had stood in the heart of the city for more than a century. It had once been a magnificent cultural landmark, hosting musicians, artists, theater performers, and community events. But decades of neglect had left parts of the building damaged and forgotten. Now, the government wanted to bring it back to life. A grand performance hall, art galleries, artist studios, a public arts academy, restored gardens, and spaces where ordinary people could experience the city's history without feeling like they were simply visiting a museum. Nicole had been chosen to lead the restoration. She should have been thinking about everything that could go right. Instead, she kept thinking about the building itself. She had visited the conservatory only once during the proposal stage. The first thing she remembered was the enormous entrance hall. The marble floors were worn. Several windows were cracked. Water stains stretched across parts of the ceiling. But sunlight still found its way through the old glass every afternoon. Nicole had stood there for almost 20 minutes that first day. Her team thought she was studying the architecture. She was, but she was also imagining people filling the space again. Children running through the gardens. Older couples attending concerts. Young artists exhibiting their work for the first time. Families walking through the doors without feeling like they needed money, connections, or a title to belong there. That was why Nicole wanted the project. Not because it would make Adams' studio famous, because she believed the building still had something to say. Her assistant, Maya, appeared beside her. Everyone's waiting for you. Nicole smiled.
Then I suppose I should pretend I know what I'm doing.
Maya laughed.
You've been pretending
for 5 years.
And somehow you've been
Nicole gave her a
me.
look. And somehow you still work
security.
for me. Job security. Nicole shook her head, smiling as they walked toward the conference room. The celebration lasted approximately 11 minutes. Then the chairman of the development board cleared his throat. The room quieted. There has been a development regarding the final appointment. Nicole's smile faded slightly. The chairman explained that another firm had formally challenged the selection. The board had agreed to allow one additional presentation before making the appointment final. Nicole listened carefully. Then came the name. Han Seo-rin. She knew it immediately. Everyone in the room did. Seo-rin had spent more than 20 years in architecture and design. She had led major cultural projects across Asia and collected awards Nicole had once studied in university textbooks. She wasn't an inexperienced competitor trying to make a name for herself. She was already at the top. And apparently, she believed Nicole had taken something that belonged to her. That afternoon, Nicole finally met her. Seo-rin arrived at Adams' studio alone. She was elegant, composed, and completely unhurried. There was nothing aggressive about her. That somehow made her more intimidating. She walked around Nicole's office, studying the models of the Seoul Grand Conservatory. For several minutes, she said nothing. Then she stopped beside Nicole's largest model. You preserved the eastern wing. Nicole nodded.
It's
part of the original structure.
That wing is inefficient. It has history. History
doesn't pay maintenance costs.
Neither does empty
Nicole
space.
smiled. Neither does empty space. Maya, standing a few feet away, suddenly became extremely interested in a stack of papers. Seo-rin noticed. A faint smile appeared on her face. You have an answer for everything. Nicole shrugged. It's part of the job. Seo-rin continued examining the model. Their disagreement was obvious. But neither woman raised her voice. Seo-rin explained that her proposal would transform the conservatory into something more commercially sustainable. Nicole believed that approach would erase too much of the building's identity. Seo-rin believed Nicole was allowing emotion to dictate professional decisions, and neither woman was entirely wrong. Before leaving, Seo-rin paused at the door.
I've spent 23 years learning how these projects work.
Nicole nodded. I know. Seo-rin looked back at her. Then you should understand why I'm not going to step aside. After she left, Maya slowly walked toward Nicole.
She
scares me. Nicole looked at her.
She didn't threaten you.
She didn't threaten you. I know. Then why are you scared? Because she didn't have to. Nicole laughed. Fair enough. But once Maya left, Nicole's smile disappeared. She looked back at the model. Seo-rin was good. Very good. That evening, Nicole arrived home later than usual. She opened the front door and immediately heard laughter coming from the living room. Her 4-year-old son was sitting on the floor, surrounded by toy blocks. Chang Jun was beside him, still wearing his work trousers and dress shirt. Nicole stopped.
What's happening here?
Their son looked up.
Daddy is building my city.
Daddy is building my city. Nicole examined the collection of blocks. This is a city? Her son nodded proudly. Yes. She pointed to a crooked tower. And what's that? My building. Nicole smiled.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. The boy shook his head. No. Nicole blinked.
No?
No?
It's crooked.
Chang Jun laughed. Nicole slowly
You've taught
looked at
our
her
son
husband.
Honesty.
You've taught our son honesty. Chang Jun
I believe in
shrugged.
constructive criticism.
I believe in constructive criticism. She picked up a cushion.
You're both impossible.
You're both impossible. Their son immediately pointed at Chang Jun. Daddy started it. Chang Jun
You're
looked
supposed
betrayed.
to be loyal.
You're supposed to be loyal.
I'm loyal to
I'm
Mommy.
loyal to mommy. Nicole burst out laughing. For a few minutes, the competition disappeared from her mind. This was the life she had once never imagined. A husband who could still make her laugh after a difficult day. A child who had somehow inherited her stubbornness and his father's confidence. A home that felt warm the moment she walked through the door. Later that evening, after their son had gone to bed, Nicole sat with Chang Jun on the balcony. The Seoul skyline stretched beyond them. Chang Jun handed her a cup of tea.
You've been quiet.
You've been quiet, Nicole sighed. Han Seo-rin. He immediately
Seo-rin.
recognized the name.
The designer?
The designer? Yes.
Yes.
She's very good.
She's very good.
Nicole slowly turned toward him.
Whose
side are you on? Chang Jun looked genuinely
I thought you
confused.
wanted an honest
I thought you
opinion.
wanted an honest opinion. I wanted emotional
I wanted
support.
emotional support.
He nodded seriously.
I can do that.
I can do
But
that.
She's still very good.
A pause. She's still very good. Nicole grabbed a cushion and hit him with it.
You asked.
Chang Jun laughed. You asked.
I
I regret asking. He caught the cushion. You're going to be fine.
You're going to be fine.
Nicole looked at him.
You don't know
You
that.
don't know that. No.
No.
He handed the cushion
But I
back.
know you.
But I know you. She smiled softly. That was all she needed. The next morning, Nicole returned to the Seoul Grand Conservatory with her engineering team. She wanted to inspect the building before finalizing the revised plans. The eastern wing was quiet. Dust floated through shafts of sunlight. Nicole walked slowly across the old floor, studying the walls and foundations. Something caught her attention. A slight misalignment between the original eastern wing and a newer section of the foundation. She frowned. Can we check this? One of the engineers examined it. It's probably nothing. Nicole shook her head.
Probably isn't
Good enough. They took measurements. Then more measurements. By the time Nicole left the building that afternoon, she had already asked her team to conduct a complete structural scan. She didn't know it yet, but that tiny inconsistency would become the first crack in the biggest project of her career. And Han Seo-rin was about to find it too. The structural scan was supposed to take 2 days.
We must reinforce
It took 4. By the 5th morning, Nicole stood inside the eastern wing of the Seoul Grand Conservatory, with a team of engineers gathered around a tablet. Nobody was talking. The lead engineer finally looked up. There is a problem. Nicole folded her arms. How bad? He hesitated. Bad enough that we can't proceed with the current design. The foundation beneath the eastern wing had deteriorated far more than the original surveys indicated. The building wasn't in immediate danger, but Nicole's design would place additional stress on the weakened structure. The entire plan would have to change. More money, more time, more approvals. How did the previous survey miss this? Nicole asked. The original structural records are incomplete. Nicole nodded. Run another assessment. We already did. Then run one more. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with before I tell the board anything. By that afternoon, the answer was clear. The eastern wing needed extensive reinforcement. The project would be delayed by months, the budget would increase significantly, and several elements of Nicole's design would have to be abandoned. That evening, she sat alone in her office, staring at the drawings she'd spent months perfecting. For the first time, they didn't look beautiful. They looked wrong. The next morning, Nicole faced the development board. The structural survey has revealed a serious issue beneath the eastern wing. A director leaned forward. Why wasn't this discovered during your initial assessment? The original structural records were incomplete. We relied on the available survey. But your firm signed off on the design. Yes, Nicole took a breath. And I take responsibility for that. The room went quiet. We can fix it, she continued. But we cannot pretend the original plan still works. The board demanded answers about the delay and additional cost. Nicole answered every question. But when the meeting ended, she knew something had changed. The board wasn't just evaluating the building anymore. They were evaluating her. That evening, an article appeared online. Major structural issues delay Seoul Grand Conservatory restoration. Most of it was accurate. Then Nicole reached the final paragraph. An unnamed industry source had called her proposal emotionally ambitious but technically inexperienced. Nicole stared at the screen. She didn't need a name. Han Seo-rin. The next morning, Seo-rin presented her competing proposal. Nicole went to watch. Seo-rin's design was flawless. It preserved the historic exterior, introduced a modern structural system, solved the foundation problem, lowered the cost, shortened the timeline, and created additional commercial space. Nicole hated admitting it, but it was good. Very good. After the presentation, Seo-rin simply looked across the room at her. No smug smile. No celebration. Just quiet confidence. Back at Adam's studio, Maya approached Nicole. How did it go? Nicole dropped her portfolio onto the table. She's good. How good? Nicole sighed. Annoyingly good. Maya smiled. That's unfortunate. I know. But the problem wasn't Seo-rin. Seo-rin had simply exposed a weakness Nicole could no longer ignore. That night, Nicole arrived home exhausted. Chang Jun was sitting on the sofa with their sleeping son beside him. Long day? He asked. Nicole nodded. I made a mistake. She told him everything. The foundation. The delay. The money. The board. Seo-rin. When she finished, she looked down. Maybe she's right. About what? Maybe I'm not ready for this. Chang Jun studied her. Do you want me to tell you you're wrong? I don't know. Then I won't. Nicole gave him a tired smile. You're supposed to make me feel better. I am. How? He gestured toward their sleeping son. You built a company while raising him. With help. Of course. He paused. But you still built it. Nicole leaned back. I just don't want to lose everything I've worked for. Chang Jun reached for her hand. You won't. You don't know that. No. He squeezed her hand. But I know you. Nicole looked at him. And somehow that was enough. Their son suddenly stirred. Daddy? Chang Jun looked down. Yes? Did you finish my dinosaur? Chang Jun blinked. Your dinosaur? The boy pointed toward the coffee table. My dinosaur needs a house. Nicole started laughing. Chang Jun looked at her. Your son. She shook her head. Absolutely your son. Their son yawned. Mommy's son. Nicole laughed harder. Chang Jun sighed. Apparently I'm alone in this family. The next morning, Nicole returned to the conservatory. This time, she wasn't looking for problems. She was looking for answers. She studied the old walls, foundation records, and photographs in the archives. Then she discovered something unexpected. Decades earlier, the Eastern Wing had housed a community arts program where children from across Seoul came to learn music, painting, and theater. Some of the city's most respected artists had started there. Nicole stopped in front of an old photograph of children sitting on the floor with paintbrushes in their hands. And suddenly, she understood. She had been trying to restore the building, but perhaps she needed to restore its purpose. The conservatory had never been about luxury. It had been about giving people somewhere to belong. That evening, Nicole spread the old photographs across the table at Adam's studio. Her team gathered around her. We're changing the plan. Maya looked nervous. How much? Almost all of it. Should I call everyone? Nicole glanced at the clock. Tomorrow morning. Maya smiled. Then Nicole added, but I'll probably be here all night. Maya sighed. I knew there was a catch. Nicole laughed. For the first time in days, she felt certain again. She didn't know whether the board would accept the new design. She didn't know what Han Seo-rin would do next. But she finally knew what the Seoul Grand Conservatory needed to become. And that was worth fighting for. The next 3 weeks became the hardest weeks Nicole had experienced since founding Adams Studio. The new design for the Seoul Grand Conservatory was taking shape, but almost nothing about it was easy. The eastern wing needed reinforcement without destroying its original character. The old performance hall had to be restored rather than replaced. Nicole's Public Arts Academy required more space, and every change affected the budget. She spent long hours moving between engineers, historians, contractors, and designers. Sometimes she went home with drawings still open on her tablet. Sometimes she woke in the middle of the night with a new idea and immediately wrote it down. Chang Jun noticed. He never complained. Instead, whenever he found her working late, he quietly left food beside her. One evening, Nicole looked up and found a plate beside her. "Did you bring me food?" Chang Jun stopped at the doorway. "You've been working for 4 hours. I wasn't hungry. You are now." Nicole smiled. "You made this?" "No." "Good." He looked offended. "I can cook. You burned water last year. I boiled it. You somehow burned it." He shook his head. "Eat." Nicole laughed and returned to her drawings. But the pressure kept building. The board had given her one final opportunity to prove that her revised design was financially and structurally viable. If she failed, the project would go to another firm. And Han Seo-rin was waiting. Her proposal had lower costs, a shorter construction time, and fewer structural complications. Nicole's design had something harder to measure. Meaning. One afternoon, Nicole sat alone in the conservatory's archive room, surrounded by old photographs. Children painting, musicians rehearsing, families filling the old performance hall. She picked up a photograph of a little girl holding a violin almost as large as she was. Nicole smiled. She finally understood why she couldn't turn the conservatory into another luxury destination. It had to remain accessible. It had to give something back to the city. That evening, Nicole returned home earlier than usual. Before she could take off her shoes, a familiar voice came from the living room. "I hope you're feeding my grandson properly." Nicole froze. "Professor?" Professor Kang appeared with a small bag. Nicole hugged him. "What are you doing here?" "Visiting my family." "You could have called. Then you would have told me you're busy." Nicole laughed. "Because I am busy." "Exactly." Their son suddenly came running from the hallway. "Grandpa." Professor Kang crouched down and opened his arms. "You've grown." "I'm 4. I know." "I'm still 4. Professor Kang nodded seriously. "Very impressive." Nicole laughed. Chang Jun entered carrying tea and stopped when he saw his uncle. "You came without warning." Professor Kang pointed at the tea. "Is that for me?" Chang Jun handed it to him. Professor Kang took a sip. "Too cold." Chang Jun stared at him. "You've been here for 30 seconds." "Exactly. You've had plenty of time." Nicole covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. Their son tugged on Professor Kang's sleeve. "Grandpa, Daddy can't build my castle." Professor Kang looked at Chang Jun. "What's wrong with you?" "I can build a castle." The boy shook his head. "Daddy's castles fall down." Nicole burst out laughing. Professor Kang smiled. "At least one of you is honest." Later, when the house became quiet, Professor Kang noticed Nicole's drawings on the dining table. "The conservatory?" Nicole nodded and explained everything. The structural problems, the board, Seo-rin, and her vision for the Arts Academy. He listened carefully. Then he placed the drawings down. "You've finally understood." "Understood what?" "Why you became a designer." He reminded her of the young woman he'd met years ago, who had wanted to create places where people felt they belonged. "That hasn't changed," he said. Nicole looked at the plans. "No?" Then don't let a difficult project make you forget it. His words stayed with her. That night, Nicole returned to her office and began drawing again. She changed everything. The Eastern Wing would become a public arts academy. The old performance hall would remain intact. The original foundation would be reinforced and preserved behind glass instead of hidden. The new structure would be built around the old one, allowing visitors to see the building's history. It was risky, it was expensive, but it was meaningful. The following morning, Nicole presented the revised concept to her team. Maya stared at the plans. You want to keep the original foundation visible? Behind reinforced glass. People are going to see the cracks. Yes. On purpose? Nicole smiled. Maybe that's the point. The team began to understand. They weren't restoring a perfect building. They were preserving an imperfect one and giving it another chance. But there was still a problem. The design sacrificed a large portion of the luxury retail space, which meant significant lost revenue. Her financial team immediately objected. If we reduce the commercial space, the numbers won't work. Nicole spent the afternoon searching for another solution. By evening, she had one. Instead of relying on luxury retail, she proposed partnerships with local artists, independent restaurants, and cultural organizations. The academy would offer paid programs alongside free community programs. The performance hall would generate revenue while remaining accessible, and the gardens could host seasonal events. The project could survive financially without losing its purpose. That night, Nicole sat beside Chang Jun on the couch. You look exhausted. I am. Did you solve it? Nicole smiled. I think so. I'm proud of you. She leaned against his shoulder. You haven't even seen the numbers. I don't need to. Nicole looked up at him. That's not how business works. No, he smiled. But marriage isn't business. She smiled back. Then a sleepy voice came from the hallway. Mommy? Their son stood there holding his blanket. What is it, baby? Grandpa snores. Chang Jun closed his eyes. Their son added, loud. Nicole started laughing. Chang Jun looked toward the guest room. I knew I should have booked him a hotel. From down the hallway came Professor Kang's sleepy voice. I heard that. Nicole laughed even harder. For the first time in weeks, the pressure felt lighter. The next morning, Nicole returned to the Seoul Grand Conservatory. She walked through the Eastern Wing again. But this time, she didn't see a damaged building. She saw a future. She knew exactly what she was going to fight for. Unfortunately, someone else had seen her revised plans too. Han Seo-rin. And for the first time, Seo-rin wasn't certain her own proposal was better. The final week before the board's decision was the longest Nicole had experienced in years. Every morning began before sunrise, and every night ended long after Seoul went quiet. The Seoul Grand Conservatory had become more than a project. It had become a test of everything Nicole believed about architecture. Her revised design preserved the historic Eastern Wing, reinforced the damaged foundation without hiding its scars, restored the old performance hall, and transformed the Eastern Wing into a public arts academy. But there was a problem. The changes made the project more complicated and expensive. Across the city, Han Seo-rin was preparing her own final presentation. Her proposal was precise, efficient, beautiful, and financially stronger. Nicole knew she would be difficult to beat. But she wasn't trying to beat Seo-rin anymore. She was trying to build the conservatory she believed the city deserved. 3 days before the presentation, the two women unexpectedly met inside the old building. Seo-rin looked toward the Eastern Wing. You changed it. Nicole nodded. I did. Why? Because the first design was wrong. Seo-rin raised an eyebrow. That's an unusual thing for a designer to admit. I'd rather admit it than defend something I no longer believe in. Seo-rin studied her. That's what separates us. How? I would have fixed the problem without changing the entire philosophy of the project. Nicole considered that. And I couldn't. Seo-rin looked toward the old building. You care too much. Nicole smiled faintly. That's what everyone keeps telling me. It isn't always a compliment, sir. I know. Seo-rin turned toward her. Do you think caring makes you a better designer? Nicole shook her head. No? Then why do it? Nicole looked around the hall. Because I don't think people remember buildings. Seo-rin waited. They remember how those buildings made them feel. For a moment, neither spoke. Seo-rin finally nodded. You really believe that? Completely. Seo-rin turned to leave, then stopped. I still think my design is better. Nicole smiled. That's okay? You're not going to argue? No. Tomorrow we'll both have a chance to prove it. For the first time, Seo-rin smiled. Fair enough. The next morning, Nicole and her team finalized the presentation. But one problem remained. The financial projections still showed a gap. Reducing luxury retail space for the public academy had cost the project significant revenue. Nicole could restore the retail space and solve the problem. But that would mean shrinking the academy. She refused. Instead, she contacted local businesses, artists, and community organizations. Her new model would combine sponsored programs, affordable studio rentals, commercial events, and free community classes. The building wouldn't depend entirely on luxury retail. It would sustain itself. By midnight, the numbers finally worked. Nicole leaned back in her chair, exhausted but smiling. The following morning, the final presentations began. Seo-rin went first. Her proposal was spectacular. She had created a modern cultural destination while preserving the conservatory's most important historical elements. Her presentation was flawless. Nicole knew exactly why the board was impressed. Then Nicole's name was called. She walked to the front of the room. Her first slide showed an old photograph of children inside the Eastern Wing. She told the board about the artists, families, and students who had once filled the conservatory. Then she revealed her design. She didn't hide the cracks. She preserved them. She didn't erase the old foundation. She incorporated it, and she transformed the Eastern Wing into a place where another generation of children could learn. Then came the financial model. Nicole explained every partnership, revenue stream, and cost. She didn't pretend the project was cheap. She proved it could survive. Finally, she looked at the board. We don't need to erase what this building was to show people what it can become. Silence filled the room. One director finally asked, "And if the costs increase again?" Nicole took a breath. "Then we'll adapt." The director frowned. "That's not reassuring." Nicole nodded. "I know." She looked at the photograph behind her. "But if we restore the walls and lose the reason they were built, then we've preserved a building and destroyed its purpose." The room went silent again. When Nicole finished, the board thanked her and announced that the decision would come later. Outside the room, Seo-rin was waiting. "That was a good presentation." Nicole smiled. "So was yours." Seo-rin nodded. "Did you really mean what you said?" "Which part?" "That you'd adapt if the costs increased." Nicole smiled. "I've learned that things rarely go exactly according to plan." Seo-rin gave her a small smile. "That's probably the most honest thing you've said all day." Nicole laughed. "Was that a compliment?" "Don't get used to it." They walked away in opposite directions. An hour later, Nicole was sitting in her office when her phone rang. It was the chairman. "Miss Adams, the board has reached its decision." Nicole stood slowly. "Yes?" A pause. Then, "The Seoul Grand Conservatory will be restored under your direction." Nicole closed her eyes. For a moment, she couldn't speak. She had won. Then the chairman added, "Your proposal wasn't the easiest choice." Nicole smiled. "I understand. It was the right one. Thank you." The call ended. Moments later, Maya rushed into the office. "What happened?" Nicole looked at her. "We got it." Maya screamed. The entire team rushed in, laughing and celebrating. Nicole smiled as they hugged one another. Across the city, Seo-rin received the news. She stared quietly at Nicole's final design. For the first time, she didn't see an inexperienced designer who had gotten lucky. She saw someone who had been tested, made mistakes, changed course, and still found a way forward. Han Seo-rin closed the file. She wasn't angry. She finally understood. Nicole hadn't won because she was more experienced. She had won because she was willing to learn. And that was something worth respecting. The next 2 years passed in a blur of construction meetings, unexpected problems, revised schedules, and more coffee than Nicole cared to admit. Winning the project had been the easy part. Building it was another story. Every time Nicole's team solved one problem, another appeared. Old plumbing needed replacing, original windows required custom restoration, and part of the foundation needed additional reinforcement. One week, hundreds of tiles arrived in the wrong shade. Nicole stared at them. They're supposed to be ivory. Maya picked one up. This is ivory. Nicole shook her head. It's cream. Maya laughed. What's the difference? About 3 meetings and a nervous breakdown. Despite the headaches, the project slowly came together. The old performance hall was restored. The eastern wing became the Public Arts Academy. The original foundation was reinforced and preserved beneath glass. The new structure blended with the historic building instead of replacing it. And the forgotten gardens became public spaces filled with trees, sculptures, and places for people to gather. Nicole visited almost every week. She remembered the first time she had walked through those doors. Back then, the building had felt abandoned. Now it was alive. Children attended academy programs. Artists occupied the studios. Musicians rehearsed in the restored hall. Still, Nicole refused to celebrate until everything was finished. One evening at home, Chang Jun found her reviewing construction photographs. Still working? Nicole smiled. Almost finished. You've said that every week for 2 years. One day I'll be right. Their 6-year-old son suddenly ran into the room wearing a superhero cape. Mommy? Nicole looked up. What happened? Daddy said I can't fly. Chang Jun sighed. I said you can't jump off the sofa. The boy looked at Nicole. That's what flying is. Nicole tried not to laugh. Your father has a point. I don't like his point. Then he looked at Nicole. Mommy, can I have cake? No. He immediately turned to Chang Jun. Daddy? Chang Jun shook his head. Your mother already answered. The boy frowned. But you're the billionaire. Nicole burst out laughing. Chang Jun closed his eyes in embarrassment. Who taught him that? You did, Nicole said. I absolutely did not. Their son smiled proudly. Grandpa taught me. They all burst out laughing. Later that week, Nicole visited Professor Kang. He was sitting in his favorite chair reading. You look tired, he said. I'm fine. That's what tired people say. Nicole smiled. The conservatory is almost finished. Professor Kang closed his book. Are you proud? She thought for a moment. Yes. Good. You should be. Nicole sat beside him. There were so many times I thought I was going to lose it. You almost did. She stared at him. Thank you for the encouragement. I didn't say you lost. Nicole laughed. Professor Kang reached for her hand. Do you remember what you told me when you were 20? She shook her head. You said you wanted to design places where people felt they belonged. Nicole smiled. I remember. Did you? Eventually. He nodded. That's all that matters. Then the opening ceremony arrived. Thousands of people gathered outside the Seoul Grand Conservatory. The restored stonework stood beside the new structure. The historic gardens were filled with flowers. Inside, music drifted through the restored performance hall, while children explored the academy and artists prepared their studios. The building Nicole had once found empty was now full of life. Nicole stood near the entrance, taking it all in. Chang Jun approached with their son, who was wearing a tiny suit. You're late, Nicole said. 3 minutes. 3 minutes is late. Their son raised his hand. I told Daddy to hurry. Chang Jun looked at him. You were the reason we were late. I couldn't find my shoes. You were wearing them. The boy looked down. Oh. Nicole laughed. Chang Jun shook his head. He's definitely yours. Their son grabbed both their hands. Can we go inside? Nicole smiled. Yes. They walked through the entrance together. A few minutes later, Professor Kang arrived. Nicole hurried toward him. Professor, I told you I would come. She hugged him. I knew you would. He looked around the restored conservatory. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he smiled. You did it. Nicole shook her head. We did it. Their son tugged on Professor Kang's sleeve. Grandpa? Yes? Mommy made this whole building. Nicole laughed. Not the whole building. The boy pointed toward her. She made the important parts. Everyone laughed. Across the courtyard, a familiar figure approached. Han Seo-rin. She looked around the conservatory before turning to Nicole. You kept the foundation. Of course. Han Seo-rin watched the children entering the academy. I was wrong about that, Nicole smiled. You don't have to say that. I know. The Seo-rin extended her hand. Congratulations. Nicole shook it. Thank you. Seo-rin looked around. I still think my design would have been more efficient. I know. And cheaper. I know. Seo-rin raised an eyebrow. You really aren't going to argue? Nicole smiled. No. Why? Nicole looked toward the children running through the gardens. Because I didn't build this to win an argument. Seo-rin followed her gaze. Her expression softened. I know. They stood together for a moment before Seo-rin walked away. Nicole watched her go. She didn't feel victorious. She felt grateful. Seo-rin had challenged her harder than anyone ever had. And because of that challenge, Nicole had become a better designer. That evening, the opening ceremony began. Music filled the restored hall. Guests filled the seats. Nicole sat beside Chang Jun, with their son between them, already fighting sleep. Chang Jun leaned toward her. Are you happy? Nicole looked around. At their son. At Professor Kang sitting a few rows ahead. At the artists, children, families, and strangers who had filled the building. 7 years earlier, she had been sitting at a birthday dinner, wondering if the man she loved would keep his promise. That night had brought Chang Jun into her life. Now she understood that some of life's most important moments don't announce themselves when they happen. They simply become the beginning of everything that follows. Nicole took Chang Jun's hand. Yes. He smiled. Good. Their son suddenly opened one eye. Mommy? Yes? Can we have cake? Nicole laughed. Again? It's my birthday. Chang Jun looked at him. Your birthday was 3 months ago. The boy thought about it. Oh. He closed his eyes again. Nicole leaned against Chang Jun's shoulder, laughing quietly. The music continued. The lights filled the restored hall. And somewhere inside the building, children were already making memories that would belong to them long after Nicole was gone. Nicole looked around the room one final time. 5 years ago, she had been waiting for someone to arrive at her birthday dinner. Tonight, she wasn't waiting for anything. She had already found what she had been looking for. A family, a purpose, a home, and a life she had built with her own hands.